Hi, nice to meet you.
Thank you for having me.
Nice to meet you as well. I can see some art there in the background, just sort of folded off to the side. And I know
Yeah.
that we're talking about the Ghost of Wreckers Cove on this episode. So glad to be talking about the world of comics and all ages graphic novels. And I suppose the first question is, please tell us a little bit about your collaboration. Have you met before this project? Did you know each other?
Yes, we collaborated before making the book. We collaborated in making Three Little Girls. We
Very nice.
yes, we've been married for I don't know how many 20 something years. We're both from Argentina. So we've been married for many years, and then it was back in the fun COVID times. And Angie said
Mhm.
we have always talked about doing a graphic novel where Angie, who's a writer, would write the thing and I would just draw. And in COVID times, we had time. And we thought, like, well,
Absolutely.
it's an experiment. Either we get a divorce or a book. I heard good things about both of those.
Yeah,
There you have it.
we had wanted to do something about ghosts and lighthouses for a long time. Like it was in my head. And we spend a lot of time in Maine and visit lighthouses and just came together during COVID. This story about these two little girls. Yeah.
Love it, love it. Now, there's a little bit of folklore in the book as well, right? There are some ingredients, so I'm curious about how that conception came to be.
Um, it was because of the visiting of the lighthouses, and then I also started reading a really great history of lighthouses. It's called Brilliant Beacons, and it's the history of lighthouses in America. And it just had so many interesting stories. Among them, the stories of women lighthouse keepers in the States and how many of them there were. And one of them particularly was super famous. Her name was Ida Lewis, and she was the lighthouse keeper for a lighthouse in where is in Rhode Island in Newport, and
Mm.
she became really famous because she saved the president's godson, I think. And then she also saved a bunch of other people. And the president even paid her a visit at one point. She was on the cover of magazines. It was just this weird little story. Um,
Mhm.
so, so I just became interested in that. And then also in the Brilliant Beacons, there are this is not actual history because no one's ever recorded an instance of this happening, but there were stories of wreckers, of people who would take wagons with lights and confuse the boats so that they would crash and they would take all the stuff from the boats. Um, this is not historical fact because there are no records of that, but there are a lot of stories. So both of those things were going around in my mind when the story came. Yeah.
Love it, love it. So lots of weaving in of history and the tales that people tell and all the things. And what was the creative process like between the two of you?
Yeah, it was a little bit of back and forth at the beginning, just, what kind of story we wanted to tell. Angie came up with the characters, with the idea, the concept, everything. I think my only input in the story is I wanted the ghost to have no feet.
Yes.
I don't know. It just
She's very
Hmm.
interested on
I
the
I had no idea why, but I was just like, yeah, I want to not draw their feet, and also for the people that pay very very close attention, the ghost doesn't project shadow. Like the two little girls, there's a shadow, but the ghost doesn't. But other than that, the whole story and everything, I just had the fun part of coming up with the story, which is the drawing.
So it was
Hmm.
really interesting and cool because Ricardo was tired of coming up with ideas, and I was tired of having to describe the last like little thing on the teacup every time I was writing something. And so I just would write in the room, on the shelf,
Yeah.
little girl, and he would come up with all the rest, and it was amazing. If there was something specific, then I would say it, but otherwise it was just the story, and he would come up with the things that I didn't want to write about. And for him it was really cool because I he had the story and he would come up with the stuff that he wanted
Yeah,
to
I,
draw.
I write in order to draw.
Yeah.
It's not the other way around. So like the
Yes.
price is the drawing. The. So yeah, that's the my daily strip takes a lot of my brain power. So it
Mhm.
was generally when I do something other than my daily strip, I will do it with some other writer or a musician or whatever. Yeah.
Because yeah. So we didn't like we didn't fight. We didn't. There was no like I think it should be this way. I think it should be that way. I did my thing and he did his. So it made it
Yeah.
really easy.
That's why we didn't get the divorce.
Yeah.
That is wonderful. That's wonderful. I'm so glad it turned out well. And now you have a book as well.
Yes.
Yep. A book, three girls and two dogs. That's my that's
Many
the count
things.
for
Nice.
that.
Many things.
Nice. And you're dog lovers, so this means you're good people. Uh, how did
I will
you
say
go
though,
about?
I'm
Oh, go
sorry to
ahead.
contradict you there, Jason, but I think Adolf Hitler was a big dog guy.
Ah,
So
true.
I don't know. I don't know how scientific is your fact, but we'll take it though.
We'll take
We're
it.
way
Yes,
better
yes.
than Hitler. I will say
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I that is wonderful. That is glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. Well, curious about the real and the supernatural and how you played with that. I know that you mentioned certain creative decisions about the ghost, but I imagine that was a lot of fun to look at a place that you were connected to, but then to imagine some of this mythology as part of it too.
So there was a lot when I was a little kid. I used to read a lot of like mystery books. Here you read Nancy Drew. We used to read the Famous Five, and it was the same sort of construction in that it was these kids and there was a mystery and it seemed like it was a ghost or something supernatural, and in the end it wasn't. Like it was
Mhm.
something
Little
that was
Scooby-Doo
that
thing,
yeah,
yeah.
it was Scooby Doo. It was like very explainable in rational terms um and I thought, why not do that, but have it be magical, have magic in it to solve the mystery, and that the mystery is actually magical. So that was sort of the premise for the two little girls being detectives and like trying to solve this puzzle of the missing lens and the girl who's part of the puzzle in the end, so they don't know it. So yeah, that was sort of the idea behind it. Those books that we used to read as kids, but turning it into something.
I just love that history of children's literature that comes with it too. That's wonderful to include.
So I've kept reading children's books like as a grown up, and yeah, and it helps a lot that I think that he's connected too. We have kids, of course, but and seeing your kids read the books that you used to read as a kid, and in my case, a lot of them are not actually here because even though it's the same language, the stuff that you would read in Ireland where I grew up was not the same as the things that you used to read here. And certainly
Or
we
in
got a little,
Argentina, yeah.
it didn't, and Argentina didn't have a huge amount of children's literature. So
Yeah, we would read most like classic novels. That
yeah,
would
like
be
Little Women.
so. I read Moby Dick as a 200-page thing when I was 10
Hmm.
years old, but I count Moby Dick as read. You know?
Absolutely, that
Yeah,
counts.
absolutely. You know, I counted.
So
Have you read Moby Dick? Yeah, 200 pages when you're 10. It's 1,000 when you're grown up.
so there's that mix, and so yeah, so I think that um that this detective thing was like something that I always wanted to explore.
Yeah, and me, I also do a lot of like books for kids. It's well, we're both like we both love that kind of art, that kind of, just from Oliver Jeffers to Maurice Sendak to whatever to Enid Blyton,
Hmm.
Roald Dahl. Um, and so when I do books for kids, I always take it very kind of seriously. I feel more responsibility than when I work for grown-ups because whatever a kid reads, it goes like whatever we read when we were kids, it went directly into our DNA, right? Like whatever you
Hmm.
discover as a little kid, it becomes part of you. And what you discover as a grown up, you really like, but what you discover as a kid becomes part of, kind of your personality. And so whenever I do books for kids, I take that very seriously. And there's a lot of people that kind of, under underestimate that type of literature. So it's the same, let them read whatever, My Little Pony. But what you read when you're a little kid is the base of what you're going to read from then on. It's kind of like an architectural thing.
But don't you think, like, and this is where I was going with the literature. This is a 9 to 12 graphic novel. I think that 9 to 12 is when we become readers, because it's when you start picking the books and your parents stop picking them.
Absolutely.
And so I always found that, like, those were my favorite books, certainly growing up. But also, like, I always found that they're the most interesting because those are the ones that the kids begin to pick, and they're the ones that they'll always remember when they're grown up, I think, or at least I do.
For me, my feeling is if you're a 9 to 12-year-old kid and a book makes you feel a very strong emotion, then you're a reader.
Yeah.
Right? Whatever emotion it is, maybe it's sadness, maybe it's like it made you laugh very hard. For me, it was when I was 11, my mother bought me Pet Sematary, Stephen King book.
It's not
that scared me. Yeah, it's not a kid's book. Definitely, my mother was not paying attention. I just wanted a scary book, and that's what she got me. But the fear that I felt the night that I was reading with this guy and the dead baby in the woods made me a reader my whole life. So what I am pro a tiny trauma when you're a kid. Tiny traumas are fine. Reading a book a little before you should have read that book, it's a good idea. But ours is not as traumatic, I would say.
No, it's not. It's not scary.
It's not as scary as Pet Cemetery.
I don't think it's
a little supernatural.
Yeah,
a little supernatural.
The Ghost of Wreckers Cove, not as scary as Pet Cemetery. That would be a good way to sell it.
Yeah. Not a bad way.
Yeah. Children's literature has this great way, and all ages books have this great way of teaching or talking about complicated things in really simple but still relatable ways too. And deceptively simple because they can be really complex at the same time. So there's a lot there to balance as authors in that space.
Yeah, it's I remember reading that I didn't grow up with this book, but I saw the movie, The Bridge of Terabithia. And I remember reading that the author wrote it for her son or her daughter, because they had lost their best friend from a lightning strike on the beach. And so this little kid who was 11 or 10 had lost his best friend, and she couldn't explain it. And so she wrote this book.
Yeah,
so sometimes it's like for ourselves, you know what I mean? It's
but
like,
in Wreckers Cove, there's also like a subtext on grief and loss, because the two little girls have just kind of lost their mom. You don't really know exactly when, but so it's just a single father and the two girls, and I think it's not overt throughout the book, but the whole thing with the ghost and the finding the afterlife or whatever, it's kind of there, and even the last page it kind of pops a little bit that theme, and then it's a sweet ending, I will say. Well done, Angie.
Thank you. Yes, there is that balance of, like, there is that grief thing that I think we all deal with sooner or later, and I think it's an important conversation that certainly I like. It's very tropey, the Disney parent that dies, but it is something that connects a lot. At least, I lost my mother when I was 23, and I think that a lot of that might be in there, even though these kids are younger. And I always think about when I read things that resonate with me and make me feel like closer or more in balance with someone I lost.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that too. And it sounds like it was a meaningful project to work on, and a great way to process through life and experiences creatively.
Definitely. It was fun.
Yeah. As you look back,
as coming up with the three girls, but it was pretty good too.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Loves my
sister. Sounds like perhaps you have another collaboration in mind.
Yeah, we've been thinking about, like, keep going with the two girls, or maybe coming up with another different story. But
the next story is in Salem.
Yeah, we're thinking witches.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it. Yeah. And I'm just imagining the visual style of this book and how wonderful that would be.
We visited Salem several times. It's a cool place. Um,
Yeah.
and then there's an idea for the third book, and that would be in a very strange place in Rochester, New York, because that's where
Ah,
spiritualism started. The whole movement of spiritualism here in the States began in Rochester. So, there's also the idea that all of these books, if we continue to write them, will always have some things grounded in history. Because I
mhm.
remember reading and then wanting to know which parts of the book were true and which weren't when I would read like novelized things of Mary Queen of Scots or different things that had history in them, and I like showing the children that this comes from here and this is from here and this is real and you can go visit it if you want to.
Yeah.
I would have loved that as a kid.
My thing as a kid, that was Asterix. I used to love Asterix, and it was also
Yeah.
fun, when you
You
figured
had
out
things.
like the little historic stuff going on in between fights. It was a fun read when you discovered, oh, Julius Caesar actually existed, or
Yeah, you could go research.
Lutece, or Londinum, or whatever, like those kind of historical places that ended up being real, actual modern
I
places.
also like that in actually, now that I'm thinking about it, in the three stories, in this one especially as well, there's no research on Google or the internet. Their research has to be in the library because the stuff is not online, the stuff that they're looking for.
Oh,
So
cool. Very
I
cool.
also like that they have to go to the library, they have to go and mess with microfilm and that, yeah, that taking the computers and the internet out of it, which is hard when you're talking about young children, um
Mhm.
was super satisfying in that sense.
We can't take them from our daughter, so we took them from these two
We
little
took them,
girls.
yeah, exactly.
Nice, nice. Yeah, a little technology break by proxy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And getting your hands messy in the research. I remember those days very well too. Lots of fun.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's sad that kids are not getting bored enough. There's
Yeah.
like they're getting their brains unplugged, but they are, that's where when I found out, how to be a cartoonist, because I was bored and there was nothing else to do. And when you have kids, it's very tempting to turn them off. And if you
Hmm.
put a telephone in their face, they will turn off. So it's tempting, but you need them to be bored. So whenever our little girls, when they were tiny, would come and said, "Papa, I'm bored," I would go like, "Yes, figure it
Hmm.
out.
Hmm.
Go and be bored somewhere.
Absolutely.
Learn to play an instrument or read a book or whatever."
Yeah, and that's also um there's something that I didn't write in the book, but it was always like in the back of my mind. And it's that all this magic happens, far away from the center of towns and big cities and stuff. And I sort of had this idea that magic gets to become bigger and work and exist in a space where they don't have the phones, technology sort of drains that magic away. And so this is a space where, because her phone doesn't work, there's no signal, which there isn't where we live actually.
Hmm.
The magic was able to exist and they were able to see it because they were paying attention, sort of thing.
Stepping into the magic of the world. As you look back on the project, any image, word, any part of it that you find that sticks with you most, that haunts you, that you can share? Of course, that wouldn't be a spoiler territory sort of work.
I have a bit that I like, but that's like, what
Yeah,
does it say? It's when they're in the forest and the mother had told her that if you stop and listen, or what does it say? I can't read anything. It's like I can't remember. But anyway, but it's like they're walking in they're like walking in the woods and they're
Oh,
talking about um magic, and the older one says magic doesn't exist and the younger one says, well, I think it does, and I always will believe in fairy tales and magical things, and so I like that
yeah.
idea.
On my part, I really enjoy drawing the forest but just because we live in Vermont. So a lot of the spaces that I drew are just where I walk my dogs, and like the library is also the library of our little town in Norwich. So it's I lived my whole life in Buenos Aires, where there are zero forests, literally. I haven't seen, there's just buildings. So since I moved in to Vermont, it's been like the green period of my work, I guess. My trees have become way better. You know? I haven't gotten
Nice.
to like Walt Kelly, amazing trees, but or Bill Watterson, amazing trees. But
Mhm.
a little bit, you know. I'm going for those guys. Those are the top two, three people.
Okay.
That's my theory.
I can't say. But so yeah, those are the bits of the book that um that I also like, again, like I this is repeating myself, but just the parts that anchor into history always, because that's what I was into when I was a kid.
Yeah,
Like
those
figuring
scenes,
out which bits are like real or
those scenes were fun to draw to because I had to figure out like a way to convey, the back in time. So I just got rid of the panels and just kind of made it more flowy.
wasn't
Just
it a different color?
and it's also black and
It's
white.
black and
Yeah.
white, right? Yeah.
So yeah, we should do a shout out to Christian Argis, who's the colorist.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Ricardo never lets people color his stuff except for this
Yeah,
time because it
generally
was
I
so.
do everything in watercolor, like the daily strip and
Hmm.
my other books and whatever. But this was way too many pages, and a daily strip takes a lot of time, so we had to use the talent of your good Christian Argis.
I was gonna ask about your favorite artistic media, so that makes sense. Watercolor. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very old school. Not because I'm like a Luddite or anything. I think I'm the last person who sucked at computers. And the guy that was born 10 minutes after me bought Bitcoin or something. Like
Oh yes, yeah.
I
I,
am
I'm right
really,
there with you at the margin of the
yeah.
yeah millennial
So
margin.
I could never get like a subtle, like a human thing from the computer. I'm always amazed when people can do that, do subtle things with it. I just, I'm not good with that. But I also I am from a generation. I love that Harriman's drawings or Robert Crumb's drawings or Spiegelman's drawings are on a paper somewhere in the planet, or
Mhm.
Hergé or whatever. I like that they exist. The whole digital thing, that's why I still buy vinyls, because I'm old. I need stuff.
Yeah, yeah. The material link.
Yeah.
Um, Anything that we've missed in the talk through before we get to the final question? Anything that you want to make sure to include that we've not touched on?
Um, no, I don't think so. I can't remember if the book in this edition in the States has a glossary, but
Yeah.
that's one of my, again, favorite things that I would have liked to see in books when I was a kid. We have a glossary where Ricardo drew all the lighthouses that we visited, or a lot of lighthouses,
Mm.
and each one is like listed where it is, and you go see it. And then the other thing is that like every tiny detail, like from a necklace that they see that's part of like the treasure from the boat, was based on one belonging to Queen Victoria, and they see Victoria in a painting. Then that's written where it is, what the necklace is, like the legend of the necklace, and then Ida Lewis is mentioned. So are like why people thought there were wreckers. There's, I think, in the glossary as well, the thing about the Civil War. In the beginning of the beginning, the story was going to be about um, the lens had disappeared because during the Civil War, these lenses are very expensive. And during the Civil War, each side would take down, instead of destroying the lens, they would take it away when they knew that the Confederates or the others were coming, and they would hide them. But sometimes when the war was over, the paper or whoever knew where the lighthouse lens was would be lost. And so there are several lighthouses in the States, including many, I don't know why in Florida, that are missing their lenses because of the Civil War, because they took them down.
Fresnel?
And that was the Fresnel lenses, yeah. And so that was the beginning of the story. That was why I like, and then it became something else, the ghost, the thing, the shipwreck. But in the beginning, it was about the Civil War and these disappearing lenses. I thought it was super interesting. Anyway, yeah, that's
Love how one thread leads to another and another
yeah,
until it
so
all comes
weird.
together.
Yeah, so strange. Anyway.
Yeah. Anything that you would want listeners to know to expect from the book, and any place where they can go in particular to learn more about the two of you, your work, your collaboration?
Ricardo has a website. I think it's called Liniers Comics, and probably millions of Instagrams and things. We have
Google.
Yeah, we have a
Google the
publishing called La Editorial Común.
Yeah, we
publish
publish books in Argentina.
for children in Argentina.
Yeah.
Love that.
Then Wreckers Cove. But yeah, no, I'm not anywhere on the internet, so no one can find me.
Yeah, Angie's I'm all over the place because I have a daily strip called Macanudo that King Features run for the last 5 years, but I've been drawing it for 25 years because it started in Argentina. So that's kind of the day job. And then I do a show with a musician called Kevin Johansen. So next year we're going to be touring through the States. I hope we get to meet somewhere, Jason.
Yeah, it would be wonderful. Yeah, that
Yeah,
would be amazing.
Weird, fun show. My friend Kevin Johansen sings because that's what he does, and I draw because that's what I do. And yeah, and then the daily strip, and then a bunch of books here and there. So I keep myself busy.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I think the book will be in all the traditional bookstores, I suppose, and on Amazon, because Amazon was the first buyer of the digital rights in the very beginning of the book, which was many years ago. Anyway, yeah. So that's
Nice.
not much more.
I'm sure that it's wonderful to see it all together. And any parting words on the process of self-care as a cartoonist? Because I know it's an ongoing, all the time, coming up with ideas kind of process.
Yeah, it's a thing. I the daily strip, I always think of it as the tight wire act of the comics world. Just because you just have to put out a cartoon every day, and some days you're doing great, and some days you're a moron, and some days you're hacky, and some days you repeat yourself. So you're not waiting till the whole graphic novel is done or to the whole. So it's kind of seeing for me, what I like about Calvin and Hobbes or Far Side or Harriman and Winsor McKay or whatever, Schultz, is that you could see those guys like thinking in real time, like when they were publishing their stuff. So but I always say it's a job that you have to really, really want. It's not a thing you can do. I kind of like drawing, and I got this opportunity, so maybe I will do that. No, no, no. It's a very Sisyphusian job. Days don't stop; they just keep piling on you. So, but yeah,
for a more relaxed thing, you can do a graphic novel.
Yeah,
it can take many years, and it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
So you
take whatever time.
Yeah,
it's a little bit scary, but what I like also about the daily strip, this is how it all started. It's the big bang of this whole comic thing. Started with newspapers and Pulitzer and Hearst fighting over the Yellow Kid or whatever. So it's and I kind of feel like our natural habitat of the cartoonist, kind of the Amazon, is going away. We're in a very sad moment of newspapers disappearing when we most need them, I guess. So yeah, I feel like I got to a party when it's kind of like it's they're starting to turn on the lights and putting the chairs on the tables.
But in terms of what you're doing now, the graphic novel is on the rise a little bit with children. I think schools and libraries are paying more attention.
Yeah, that's cool.
I talked to our school librarian, and she's very into pushing graphic novels into the hands of children who ordinarily are not readers. One of my kids wasn't, and she got into reading through graphic novels. And that's sort of, that's what I would say. If your kid is not a reader, then give them Wreckers Cove.
Yeah, absolutely. And if they read avidly, give it to them as well.
Yes, then they can go to the glossary and see all the historical things that I would have been interested in.
That's right. Well, I love hearing about the process, and I'm a fan of the supernatural, the historical, and I love how all of that sounds like it's come together. And wishing you great success with this and the books that are on the way. Many collaborations to come.
Thanks so much. It was really nice talking to you.
Yeah, thank you.